Welcome to Nightmare Stories of the Other Side. Joining us today, we have Father Robert L. Bailey, a retired priest from Rhode Island. He's had an interest in the paranormal since childhood and feels that the Church and the Catholic faith can bring some ages-old wisdom and spiritual authority to the table in the area of the demonic. Father Bailey has featured on numerous paranormal TV shows on networks such as Discovery, A&E, and maybe surprisingly, Animal Planet. Welcome in, Father Bailey. Feel free to exegete further the long and storied history of your life in the paranormal.
Hello, it's great to be here.
Welcome.
Yeah, I yeah, I've had interest since my childhood and but it really solidified once I was ordained a priest. Actually, when I became a pastor, because I heard about paranormal shows at that point and started to watch them.
So, growing up as a kid, really what kind of got you into the paranormal?
Well, uh I never had any like ghosts or stuff like that, those kind of experiences, hauntings and stuff. But I was into apparitions and miracles and visions and stuff like that in our Catholic faith, which I all call Christian paranormal because it's over the normal, it's beyond the normal. So it wasn't a far leap of faith. I was always, I loved movies. And so I was always interested in horror movies and particularly those that feature good versus evil. I was always attracted to that. So later on, when I was called in to a case to help with friends of mine, and I actually helped out with a house that was haunted, doing deliverance. That's when I knew that it was something that I wanted to do.
Okay. Um, so when did you become a pastor? What year would that have been?
Well, I was ordained a priest in 1993,
Okay.
so but it wasn't until probably 2000, 2001. I started watching one of the primetime uh, ghost series, local one. And then later on, parishioners introduced me to Paranormal State. And that's when I really watched that. And I said, wow, I really like what Ryan's doing. And I wrote to him and he responded and it began a friendship. And then he invited me on to help with the dark cases.
So can you get into some detail on some of those cases and locations?
Yeah, if I can remember. One of them that was interesting, I think, was called the Church of the Damned. And I'm sure you can YouTube it. And we're in this abandoned church. And what was interesting about it was there was a lot of activity, but I can remember, it was dark activity that Chip Coffey, who we were working with also on there, said the prayer to Saint Michael. And as soon as he said the prayer, finished the prayer of Saint Michael, the heat index just escalated. And I don't know, I'm not a tech guy, so, but they were all surprised how quickly it jumped. And it coincided with the end of the prayer to St. Michael. And they were saying, like, this is not normal. This is not, ordinary. So I said, well, we've just were able to get evidence of an angelic intervention with St. Michael. So I thought that was really, really cool.
Anything else stand out from that night?
Um, no, we were able to help the people that owned. There were some people living there at the time, and we were able to help them and get them on the right road. So that was Ryan was always very much client oriented. So anytime we could help uh, the clients, he was right there. It wasn't just sensationalism,
Mhm.
which was what attracted me to the show, watching the show in the beginning.
So was it for like with the paranormal state episodes, was it mainly just like home locations or were there like more bigger locations as well?
It was mostly home locations, though would have what we would call like outings. Like we would go to some places like Eastern State Penitentiary. We would go to, some other place. We went to the Estes, Colorado, to the, where they wrote The Shining,
Oh, Stanley
uh,
Hotel.
the Stanley Hotel. Thank you. And places like that. But we would have conferences there, and so we would do speakers and stuff. So it was kind of like a special kind of thing to go to haunted places. Eastern Penitentiary, I think, was an episode of itself, but it was rare when it came just for that. We were more client oriented and would Ryan would choose the places that most, you know, that he thought he could help.
Okay.
So, but yeah,
So any other like home locations that you went to help people that really stood out more so than others?
uh, for myself, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a ministry myself called PWSM, which was the uh, Presidium Warriors of St. Michael. And my friend and I and a group who were investigators went to a convenience store in Massachusetts. And we went to do an investigation. We caught a lot of activity from my friend who was an empath getting attacked, and he was really disoriented and feeling faint. One of the tech guys actually got bitten while we were doing the investigation, and we were able to see the bite marks. Um, and the interesting thing about it was that something followed us home and attached to my friend and ended up being in the house. So we caught a number of evidence from the screaming of like a banshee or a siren.
Hmm.
That's what was recorded, to a candlestick moving on its own in the middle of the night, to one of the tech guys at the house now getting scratched on the back. And we saw that, we have footage of that. And so that was pretty formidable. And I had to do a couple of times going there to do investigation. I'm not investigation, but deliverances before we're able to set it free, you know. So that one, actually, I think you can find it on YouTube because the Haunted picked that one up. And it was called Demonic Seduction.
Okay.
It was an interesting case. That was one of the more formidable because it went from two locations, Massachusetts to Rhode Island, uh, and uh, and it was personal for me because it was my assistant, you know,
Hmm.
and his family. So and it affected the dog, which is why I got on Animal Planet.
So for the Animal Planet, now that you mentioned that, so were you just on there for like one episode or was that for like
two,
multiple? Two?
two episodes where animals were affected. Yeah, we were called to years ago a house in Connecticut, and that one again they had a dog there that was they felt was being oppressed by the spirit. So
So for dealing with animals that are oppressed, how does that look? Because I'm not really familiar with anything along that lines.
Well, the animal just, it just looked like there was something wrong with it. It was sick. It was, it just it really didn't show much emotion. It just had no strength. Um, so I would just pray over it, as I would pray over a person. In demonic seduction, it was that the dog uh, did not want my friend to go up into the attic, and that's where we believed that this spirit was hiding. And it never really goes crazy like that, but it was really going crazy when he was trying to go into the attic to get something. So it
Interesting.
was sensitive. Yeah, we were calling him the paranormal pooch.
Nice. So for, other home investigations, was there anything, else that stood out?
Yeah, we had a case in Worcester, Massachusetts, that we got called into, and it was a young woman and her boyfriend, and she was manifesting what we thought was oppression, demonic oppression, that she was being attacked. So we went, and my friend's wife went with us. She was our case manager, so she decided to come on the investigation with us. Although, because of what was being told to us in the evidence, we knew that we were going to do a house liberation. So as she's coming in, she loved to drink her iced tea, and all of a sudden she went, "Oh," and I go, "What?" She said, "This iced tea smells like urine." So my friend's husband is going, "What?" So he grabs it, and he's smelling it, and he goes, "Oh, it does." So then, of course, me going, "Get out of here." So I grab it and smell it, and it was. And I said, "This is gross." So I said, "I wonder what in the heck we're in store for." When we got into the house, the woman was laying, on the bed in a pool of urine. So that was unnerving. And after 2 hours of unsuccessfully being able to do anything with it, I realized that she was um, exhibiting signs of demonic possession, not oppression. So at that point, I had to stop and say, "This is a little over my pay grade." And I went back and I called the local bishop, who actually knew me because he was from Rhode Island, and he took he brought the case to his one of his exorcists. So yeah, but it was after over 2 hours. I was exhausted, trying everything I could, and the thing was just taunting me, you know.
Hmm.
And I mean, the boyfriend was pretty muscular, and he couldn't hold her down at all. Her strength was like unbelievable. And so that's one of the signs of possession, and speaking another language. Uh, that was part of it too, that I can remember. So that's the only case, really, of demonic possession, true demonic possession, um, that I've come across in my time there
So
doing it.
was it ever figured out where she might have got the demonic possession from?
No, no,
Hmm.
no. I'm sure the Exorcist would have. I mean, I didn't. Once I found that out, I knew that we had to get her help and
Yeah.
the proper help. So, for us as Catholics, we know that, like a lot of people talk about this one was possessed, and I went in, I did possession, and you know what? They don't know what possession is. If they ever ran into one, they would run the other way. They probably oppression. So it's a dangerous thing if someone is demonically possessed.
Hmm.
So you need the you need the permission of the local bishop in order to do an exorcism, because it's dangerous, and you have to fit the criterion of what he feels that that you're able to have the stamina, you were able to spiritually do it, and you have that kind of strength to do it at the time. So, yeah.
So for just kind of thinking back to when you were at Easton State Penitentiary, did you witness anything paranormal when you were there?
They did. I did not really enter into the end. Usually, on Paranormal State episodes, I'm not in the investigations
Okay.
themselves. They call me in the end. So I was there, but I was in another part of the penitentiary, and um, they were trying to get people to face their fears. So I said, you know what? While I'm here waiting to see what's going to happen, it was a long, very dark hallway, and it was spooky for me, because the unknown, not so much a demon, but it was just the unknown. So I said, I'm going to face my fears, and I'm going to walk alone down that hallway to the very end. So I started doing that, singing hymns and saying every prayer I knew. And finally, I got down that long hallway to the end, and so it was like that was kind of cool. But at the end, I did the deliverance of the place, and but I personally didn't feel anything at that point. But that's not uncommon because usually it goes dormant when the priest comes because they don't want to give their hand, tip
Yeah.
their hand.
So for when you get called upon, to give spiritual assistance for teams, do you like often, do some research beforehand?
It depends. If I know the investigative team, then I trust that they've done the investigation and they'll give me the results and I'll look them over. So when we go, there might be a little bit of provocation that I would do to see if I would get some kind of a response. But for the most part, I've trusted that they've done their due diligence in their investigation, and we would go in to do the house liberation itself.
Okay.
Now, um, with the new group that we have, the Holy Sword Apostolate, uh, we have different facets to it. And again, we have a questionnaire. There is different people who will handle, different areas. We have psychologists on board. We have sensitives on board. We have, people who know about uh, different medical conditions. So after interviewing them, we'll see. And sometimes, and this recently has happened in a couple of cases, we realize the person thinks he has a spiritual problem or a demonic problem, and it really is a psychological problem. And after speaking with them a long time, you can see that there's something that they need to address that's psychological.
Mm-hmm. Listen, are you okay, Laura? You kind of disappeared there for a second.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a spiritual problem, but I do think I have an internet problem. So,
Okay. All of a sudden you were like gone. We're like, wait, where'd he go?
Like, what the heck?
Okay.
unless a ghost unplugged the router.
Hey, you never know. Maybe.
Hey, I had two attempts on one at a friend of mine's show, and plus, right when we were getting on, it would have to be uh, that our Wi-Fi started going havoc and went off, and it's like, oh no. So we couldn't go on with it. We had to wait till the next week, and then even then there were problems in the beginning. But
Oh yeah,
those things are so fickle.
we had our issues when we first started the podcast with technical issues
Yeah.
and set us back a couple weeks, and then even still to this day on the podcast, like a couple weeks ago, we had one guest where his speakers went out for like a minute, and he was trying to connect everything and still wasn't working.
Mhm.
So
So there's always going to be the technical glitches here and there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It goes par for the course.
Oh yes. Okay, so where were we? I forgot.
I was talking about my apostolate and
Oh,
the
that's
different
right.
facets of that.
So is that like, so can just anybody reach out to you at any time for that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we get places across the country that will reach out for help. I mean, unfortunately, it's a mobility thing for me, but um, we try and I have a co-director that I'm very blessed with. He's an Orthodox priest in on the West Coast, Father Ken Torres. So both of us together, we kind of hit both coasts, and he's done a lot of work with the apostolate, trying to get people on board that have different kind of expertise. And we're also trying to get a network of clergy that we know that maybe in different areas of the country that we can count on if something comes in. So, like say in Minnesota,
Mm,
someone calls from there. It's not like I can just necessarily drop everything and go to Minnesota itself.
yeah.
But there might be a priest or a minister that lives somewhere around there that could go. And that's what we're hoping. It's growing slowly, as with anything else, but we're getting some names. We have to
So
really check them out.
so with that, have you had any, interesting cases so far?
Well, I believe it or not, we just began. I just
Okay.
began this holy so it's probably a few months old, and that's
Okay.
it. Yeah, we do have a case of a family um, in Pennsylvania whose whole family is being afflicted, including the children, and we're trying to guide them through that. And right now, it seems that everything is quieted down, and that very well may be to throw us off the scent, so that we won't go there. But in that instance, we're prepared to go. We just don't want to go if things are quiet. We don't want to go in there and upset the bee's nest.
Yeah.
Something should happen, again that was happening before with a she said that she had uh footage because they have those cameras all over the house, because they have children, that they had footage. So we would be able to go there. So but so far so good. We're in contact with the family, and right now everything's calm. So
That's good.
again, we were also doing remote uh, spiritual battle for them from where we were.
Okay. Yeah, I have a podcast I'm doing in a couple weeks with somebody that's was at the Conjuring House. Was it last year, I think? Or maybe it was 2 years ago. I can't remember. But anyways, so I'm gonna sit down and chat with her, and she was saying to this day she's still having weird dreams and issues that stem from the Conjuring House. So
Mhm.
maybe that could be something I could pass along your information to her if it's something major.
Yeah, is she local to New England?
No, she is in somewhere in Michigan.
Wow, went all the way to the Conjuring House. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, her and her family went there. It was either last year or the year before. I can't remember.
Yeah. Right now the Conjuring House is closed.
Yep.
As you can, if you follow the As the Stomach Turns on YouTube
Oh, yeah.
with it, I pray to God that somebody a good gets it, because that house is amazing. It's not just. I hate the word the Conjuring House. It just got labeled that. That house has a great history from the 1700s, and
Yeah.
it's a story to be told there, but it gets labeled with that and misinformation about the Conjuring house. Like what you saw in the Conjuring movie, a lot of that was not true.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And Lorraine Warren was very upset about that. I remember that, her being upset. So, but you know what? I just was thinking, as you said, the Conjuring house. I did have a case just recently with a home right near the Conjuring house that had activity that I think was somehow rooted in the Conjuring house. And we did an investigation, and I could feel the cold spots. I actually could sense, and I'm not necessarily sensitive, although the Lord has been giving me the spirit of discernment more and more. And, I could sense the heaviness, the cold spots, and all of that. And the family was being disturbed by that. So, they, so I went afterwards and did a deliverance, and that seemed to be okay, except I went in one room and I got pushed back, literally pushed back. People saw it. I go, oof. And then, but I didn't get the whole house because it was a very bad storm. And actually, Discovery's Expedition X was covering that. So it was a little confusing in the house. It's a very old house. I didn't go upstairs into the attic where one of the teenagers' rooms was. But I knew hey, this is Rhode Island, so I'll go back there. Well, I got a call that the young man got scratched on his shoulders, and when I went, he showed it to me. Okay, so I went up, and I was actually had to finish that deliverance, so I did it up in his room. And then I told my friend who owned the house, I said, right now, I want you to take the four blessed metals and put them at the four corners of the property, take the holy salt around the perimeter of the property. And as he was doing that, he could feel something behind him
Hmm.
that was, and he could hear it actually walking towards him, but he just didn't dare even look back. He just did what he had to do and went in the house. And since then, there's been no more dark activity, I thank God. The second one took. Sometimes it takes more than once
Yeah.
to go because they can hide or whatever. But so that was one since our ministry, and it has a connection to the Conjuring House. So, and that probably will be put on Expedition X probably in the fall.
All right.
I'm not sure when. Yeah.
So you yourself, have you ever been to the Conjuring house?
Nope.
No.
I wanted to go when I began doing the work publicly. I've been doing the work, but I never had any desire to go to haunted places. When you do the work, I mean, it's like I don't need to go to, you know, to hear thumps in the night. I do this as a ministry. So, but then when I started doing it, I said, you know what? That's like the most famous house in Rhode Island. I should go. But then all that started happening with Jacqueline Nunez, and people that I knew and respected were getting hurt by her. So I didn't want to go in there, kind of like
Yeah.
crossing the picket line. So I said, oh, of all times for me to be interested in wanting to go, at least to have a picture taken. But eventually I will. Eventually I will, I'm sure, when things get better.
Yeah. So when I was reading through your bio you sent, so you knew Lorraine Warren. Can you tell us a little bit about
Yes.
that relationship?
Yeah, I had, well, I first met Ed Lorraine only once. I was in the seminary, and my friend lived in Connecticut, and his mom and dad happened to know Ed and Lorraine. So, which of course immediately, you know, attracted me for that. So we were in the seminary, my classmate and I, he was from Connecticut. He said, hey, Ed and Lorraine are going to a college to speak. Do you want to go? And I said, of course I want to go. I've never met them. So we ended up sneaking out of the seminary and we went and I met Ed and Lorraine there. And it was a great talk. And and that was it for the longest time. When I started working with Ryan on Paranormal State, that's when I met Lorraine again, reconnected with her, and I began to work with her on some of the cases of Paranormal State. She was a wonderful woman, serious about the work that she was doing, but just very lovely, very sincere, a great sense of humor, and so we began a friendship. And because I was a priest, it was all the more that she felt connected, in friendship. And even, you know, after that, we would go up and visit her at her home in Monroe, Connecticut, hang out and have pizza with her and stuff. And she was really fun. She was fun. I had some great conversations. She was the one that taught me about burying the blessed metals in the four corners of the property to seal off the property.
Nice.
And I used to call her the paranormal Mary Poppins because she was so sweet. She had that little bun and her hair rolled up in the back. And I said, I could just picture you, flying down with your umbrella in your big bag with holy water and the Bible and the rosary and relics and all of that. And she started laughing, and she really liked the name. She really liked the name. So she was very down to earth.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So for you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, just say, and recently I actually got to go and visit the cemetery and visit their graves and pay my respects there.
That's awesome. So then you have a nickname yourself, the Paranormal Padre.
Yeah,
So how did
yeah.
that
When
come
I
about?
people just kind of a number of years ago and kind of said that because I was in the paranormal, and so now I kind of uh, when I reestablished myself more publicly because I was doing a lot of this work just behind the scenes for a number of years. Uh, I just kind of coined that phrase again, used that the paranormal padre, and people liked it. It's just kind of catchy.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine, Tom Gormley, and he's known as the Archangel of the Paranormal. So I said, "Oh, okay." So we're actually going in a few weeks to St. Albans Sanatorium, and we're going to give a presentation together. He's a shaman. So we're going to do about protection and all that in our different traditions. So I said, "Oh, the Archangel, the Paranormal, and the Paranormal Padre are teaming up." So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure. St.
Yeah,
Albans is a location that I want to get to. That's
yeah, yeah. A number of years ago, when I was with my other partner for PWSM, we went there and did a workshop there for people on protection, spiritual warfare, and to groups, on what that they should know about if they encounter a demon. So yeah, it's a neat place. I forgot a lot about it until I watched Project Fear, and they went to St. Albans, and it's like, oh, the bowling alley. Oh, okay. I had
yeah,
forgotten about the bowling alley. But thankfully, it's in much better shape now than it was when we went. They were working on it. There was still a lot of, almost not safe places, if you're not well coordinated. I'm not well
yeah,
coordinated.
yeah.
So,
The only location that we've been to that's like that is Indiana State Sanatorium because there's still everything left behind.
uh,
So yeah, if you're not careful there, you'll knock something over, something will knock on you, or
yeah. Well, pay no attention to that sci-fi. That was my phone.
nice.
That's my ringtone. But anyways, yeah, yeah. And in my older age, with my neuropathy and my even with my eyes, are not what they as sharp as they used to be. I have to carry a walking stick when I go, just to be careful.
Yeah, for sure. So there are any other paranormal experiences over the years that you could think of that really stand out to you that are just like, wow.
Well, the one at that convenience store in my friend's house, that was one of the most amazing. Um, Another one would be when I dealt with uh, a house that I was called to. This is kind of funny, but it isn't. This is when we knew we had to set ground rules going into a house. We walked in, to do the blessing, and the living room was full of people. What they invited relatives, and I said, "Oh no, no, this is not a spectator sport. This is, what we're doing." And so after that, we had to be very specific. Only those who are immediately, you know, involved in it, can be there. And even with them, they need to be in a room praying and just while we're going out and doing it. But it was interesting because the woman's boyfriend was there, and he was into a lot of dark stuff. And even like the artwork on the walls was very dark. And I could tell as soon as we walked in there, he didn't want us there, you know. And he had a T-shirt on that says "I kneel for no one," and I was like, "Oh boy."
Mm.
So we did what we did, tried to get out of there, and then we counseled her. I said, "If you really want you really want to be free, you got to do a few things, and you have to change your lifestyle." And she said, "Well, I know he's dark." And I said, "Well, then you need to get him out of the house." I said, "All these things on your wall are so negative and dark. You need to like brighten up the room. You need to, put bright colored curtains. You need to put nice pictures on the wall. Uh, play positive music and stuff." And said, "And that will help." I said, "But I don't think he's going to want to do that." So, we gave that. It was one of those cases that I doubted whether we could even help, and I don't know how it ended, how that case ended. Another one that stood out was one that was not ended up not being a spiritual problem at all. It was a woman who just was unfortunately psychologically imbalanced, and so she came. We went in. My assistant and I walked in, and the first thing was, "Where's Chip?" I was like, "Chip? He's not with us. He's not part of our group, you know." And so she says, "Well, I'm having all these problems. I'm having all these problems, and look, I can't keep rosary beads. They keep breaking." And she broke it in front of us, and it's like, uh oh. And as time went on, and she was experiencing, and she kept saying, "I'm not crazy, I'm very smart." And I'm going like, oh, we just looked at each other and said, "We need to get out of this house as soon as we can." And even when we did the blessing, of course, because it never hurts to bless a house, we tried to leave. She wanted to come with us. She wanted to go down to the Cape and stay with someone. And it's like, no, we can't take you. So that was one that was unfortunately it was tough to get through. It was tough to try and tell her that it wasn't paranormal. And those things happen. Those are reality. And I'm sure you've come into that.
Oh yeah, we
Uh,
were at a person's house. Like, how long ago was that? February. Like February, where she said she had a lot of paranormal activity going on in her house, but just kind of when we were there, I just kind of felt like it might have like all been in her head. Yeah, we did get some. It was just my daughter here and I and another one of our team members. Yeah, we did feel, stuff in the house, like uneasy feeling. But I just think she was just more so trying to get attention.
Ah,
And then, like, after she works with my mom, and even after talking with my mom, she goes, yeah, she's just not taking her meds and all that. So just kind of, got that feeling that there really wasn't anything going on.
Mm-hmm. That lady is.
well, yeah, and it's tough to try to tell them that. They
Right.
don't want to, they want to insist that it's a spiritual problem, you know.
Which it
Um,
still might be. And, somewhere down
yeah,
the line, we might go in there and do an investigation, but it's like such a small location. It's like might even only be two people. Like the house is like the size of a closet.
uh,
It's like we can't even really, walk around without hitting each other.
Yeah.
wow, yeah, that's even worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Um, I was just trying to think of another case, and it was like, oh, yeah. A number of years ago, we were called to a house where there's paranormal. They said it was paranormal activity. It was a husband and wife. They were Portuguese, very devout, very devout. In fact, they had a shrine. One of their rooms, they made like a prayer chapel and shrine with a huge life-size statue of Our Lady of Fatima, and the Bible there and candles, and they used to pray every day in there. And it's like, so I tried to do a few things, and he said it really wasn't helping. And we would go back. We went back like 3 or 4 times to try. We couldn't figure it out. And we're saying, but it can't be. These people are praying in here, you know. I even said a mass in the house, and come to find out, um, a few things were happening. One, some of the activity some of the sounds and stuff could be accounted for, through natural means. Another one, also some of their utilities, some of their appliances needed to be updated because they were emitting some kind of a thing that helps you, that makes you feel paranoid. I keep forgetting what it is, but
Yeah.
electromagnetic, whatever. And the other thing was the husband had some guilt and psychological issues. So as we did all of that, I talked to the wife and said, "Look, it's really not a spiritual problem. It's a psychological one." And thankfully, she was relieved, very relieved. And you know, and he was talking even suicidal. And so, come to find out afterwards, he realized I need to get help, and he did go get help. And so things worked out really well. And that was a great. It doesn't usually happen when you're dealing with people with uh, mental health issues, who are convinced that there's a spiritual problem.
Yeah.
But that was like a very happy ending. We were very, and then we kept in contact for a while, and things continued to be fine. So it was good.
That's good. So one, whoops, sorry, I just hit somebody's foot here.
Uh-oh.
So one question is, so you've been to Ed and Lorraine's museum. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's kind of a neat place. There's so much in there for a small amount, for a relatively small building. Uh, and even to today, I've been in there a number of times, but I still don't know really everything that's in there and the story behind everything that's in there. Um, I'm going to be Nesper asked me to Ed Lorraine's group, the New England Society, asked me if I would go. I like to go with them on a road trip in May. They're bringing Annabelle and a couple of the haunted objects with them on that trip so that people could see it. So on the way up, we're going from Rhode Island to Eastern State Penitentiary, then we're going to Nashville, then we're going to New Orleans, then we're going to San Antonio, Texas. And that's all on a road trip. So it should be a blast. There's about seven of us, uh,
Nice.
including my friend Ryan, who will meet in Eastern State Penitentiary there. So I plan on picking their brains about the details about everything that I saw in there. And I've heard about it from now and then, but I don't always remember everything. And
Hmm.
some people say, "Can you tell me more about the fire doll or the shadow doll?" I'm gonna have to find out again. you know, but yeah, it's a trip. It really is. It's amazing. But they have to go in there, and there is somebody who does binding prayers daily there, or almost daily, so that nothing leaves that, where that they're safely behind glass or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's important because Ed and Lorraine, just the reason why they kept them in there in like a museum is because they didn't want to get rid of them. You can't really burn them because they say that's not good either. And you don't want to throw them out or put them somewhere where someone else could get them. So the best thing to do is contain what's there so that it can't get out and affect anybody else. So
So when they, for example, take Annabelle on a road trip, do they have
uh,
to do something for whatever she's being transported in, whether it be a car, a truck, or
yes. Oh yeah, we're blessing the car. One of the guys who is very spiritually minded, with warfare. Yeah, yeah, he and I came up with a battle plan. So, yeah, we'll be blessing the car. We'll be praying daily for protection for everyone. We'll be doing the binding prayers over the objects so that they can't, be released. So, yeah, there's a reason. There is a battle plan there to keep it safe. Um, and again, you know, uh, I don't know if it's the most safe thing, but as they were saying, people today are not going to go to the museum. The younger generation, they're not. So you almost have to go out to them. And it's kind of like with us in the church. A lot of people aren't coming to the church, so we have to go out to the people. And that's just how this generation is. So that's what they're trying to do because they say, why are they bringing the haunted objects? Well, that's the reason, so that they can educate people
yeah.
and educate more groups of people who maybe can't come all the way to New England, you know, to see it.
So do you have any advice for people that, on these tours that come in contact with Annabelle and the other haunted objects on what to do? Because I'm asking because in October, they're going to have Annabelle at the Rock Island Paracon, which
Ah,
I'm there doing photography the whole day. So obviously, there'll probably be a point where I'm in this vicinity of her or, you know,
mm.
right in front of her.
Yeah, no, Annabelle doesn't scare me at all. I mean, I have a healthy respect. I won't taunt her.
Right.
I think that would be foolish. It would be almost putting God to the test. So, but no, just being around there, no, I wouldn't, you know. When I was in Gettysburg and I was being partly the spiritual bodyguard of the exhibit. I did pray and do binding prayers, and yeah, and I did feel like I had to get out of the tenting area for a while because there was something. But that's because I was doing the binding prayers, and of course they don't like that. But when you're going around, and even in the museum, you know. You can pray beforehand before you go in, and that's fine. But I don't think there's any real danger unless you start taunting it, you
Yeah.
know.
So basically be respectful.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't even bother me if I held Annabelle. Like I just no, I'm grounded in my faith. I, that doesn't that doesn't thing, but I'm not gonna like, make fun of it and, you
Right.
know, stuff like that. Yeah.
So I'm sure there are some people that like, for her or Peggy at down in Vegas or Robert the Doll, they go in there and like, you
Yeah,
know, want to taunt the spirits, which it's
yeah,
not cool.
yeah. I don't know about writing letters of apology to the doll. I draw the line there. I heard about that, and I just think no, but but I wouldn't taunt it. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
wouldn't taunt anything that you think is tainted with evil. I wouldn't even taunt a house that's we feel is inhabited. No, and when I do deal with whatever alleged spirit that's there, I always do it in the name of the Lord, not even on my own, because if there's a real um, demonic spirit there on my own, they're going to clobber me. I'm a human being. They're an angelic spirit, fallen
Hmm.
angel. They've got they got more in one pinky than I would have you know in my whole body. So and plus the intelligence and the power. So
Yeah.
you know, but no, I wouldn't feel afraid.
Okay.
I've seen it many times, Annabelle.
All right. Well, before I turn it over to Laurel, do you have any other, you know, insights to investigators or people out in the paranormal field?
Yeah, I would say this. First of all, I would tell investigators, please don't be so like centered on going to haunted attractions. Be people oriented. Look for cases that you can help people with their issues. I've seen so many people, junkies, go from one thing to another to another to another, and sees they feed off that, but they're not helping anybody, clients themselves. It's okay to go here and there, That's one thing. Like, I'm going to a few places, but that's not the bulk of my work. My work is to help people. But what I would tell investigators is to go in grounded. If you're going to do this work, you have to have some kind of faith because you may or may not run into a negative entity. That's always the chance when you're going into a place, and uh, so you should pray before you go in and pray when you leave so that nothing follows you and nothing attaches to you. That's I find a lot of people don't do that, and some people get attachments. You know, um, be respectful if there are human spirits that are trapped there. Uh, be respectful of them, and even pray that they be released and go to be with God because that's where they belong. So and don't as part of the investigations, don't use Ouija boards and seances because you're going to open portals to things that, you know, particularly if you really don't know how to use them. A lot. We've had to clean up some places where they've gone in and used those things and opened doors, and it's not as easy to find and close the portals as it is to open the portals. So be very careful. Don't use that kind of stuff because that's a direct opening up of doors possibility.
All right. Good advice.
Yeah, so before we get to the end piece of every podcast, for you, Father, I have a line of questions, but don't
Mhm.
worry, the questions don't point on your competency, but on a supposed ghost priest at the Jericho Haunted Trinity. So, just to give you a sense of the environment, you have the church, you have the convent in the middle, and there's a school over here where the nuns took care of educating the children.
Mhm.
And so it's about 4 a.m. We are in the attic of the convent, so right in the middle. And there is this supposed priest that comes through. And maybe he's a priest, maybe he's not. there are people there that believe he is a priest, but in my estimation, if he's a priest, he's not a very bright one because everything that was coming through was very, very basic. Um, so I'm a philosopher, so when the ancient Greek runs out, I needed to learn Koine Greek to sort of bridge the gap. And so I did that at a seminary.
Okay.
And do y'all have to study Greek in seminary? Well, when you went through?
No, I took a semester of Greek. The only time you really would have to do that is if you were centering on scripture. Like if you were doing your master's in scripture, you'd have to take some Greek, Hebrew, but that's only for them. We don't really have to have even Latin. We know some Latin, but it wasn't like it was years ago that you had to know, you know, it back and forth because the masters are now for the most part in English. But the Koine Greek, yeah, I still remember a little trace of the Our Father and a little trace of the Hail Mary in Greek. Uh,
See, and that was my question to him. I put it to him, could he identify or continue the prayer that starts Pater Hemon Ha Antoius Irenoius?
yeah.
And he said, "You're being mean."
Huh.
And then he got really agitated after that. And it's still in question for me if he's actually a
Yeah.
priest because that was something that was recited every day of that Greek semester.
And why would he be upset? That'd be
Right.
one thing. Yeah, I mean, there are such things as anybody, any line of work, even priests who may have chosen a double life or maybe to go to the dark side in some areas and they're paying for that. Uh, that could be, but I don't know. Don't forget, if there is a negative spirit there, they're also liars, and they'll portray themselves to be something they're not. They can very well do that. They've done that with coming in as little children. Then you realize, hey, this is not a little child anymore. This is a full-grown demonic spirit.
Oh yeah.
But what you
So the
did,
last,
what you did in trying to ascertain was actually a smart thing.
yeah. So the last thing we do on our podcast is give you an opportunity to point people to any websites, any social media, any publications where you might want them to look.
Sure. Um, I have a website for the Holy Sword Apostolate. So it's Holy Sword Apostolate, and apostolate is APOSTOLATE.com. And that's the website. Um, and if they have questions uh, about things that about for advice or whatever, they can email myself at frbob444 at yahoo.com. Unfortunately, I must get 50 or more friend requests on Facebook, and it gets like, oh my gosh, it just occupies so much time, and I've had to, like, because it's getting filled so fast. If I really don't know them, and I don't have a lot of common people, friends, Facebook friends on there. I don't accept them because it's just getting so much. So I can't. But they can look at my Facebook. But right now, to go on to the Holy Sword, and it has a lot of teachings. A lot of information on there. About protection and about all those kind of things. So it's a teaching. It's a teaching vehicle, you know.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Oh no, it's been great.
Yes,
I
thank
really
you.
enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
All right. Well, yeah, I will, stay in touch, and then we
Okay.
can, once I have that podcast with that other guest, I'll have Laurel probably jump on with that too. We can kind of discuss what we find, and then, if it's think it's something else, we could maybe refer it towards you.
Yeah. I'm also my friend Father Ken Torres and I are also on a new group. I don't know if you're familiar with Joe Frankie.
No, I am not.
No, okay. He's beginning the Warren Society. And so basically it continues the work of Ed and Lorraine. He's known them for so many years. And so we're part of his group. He's part of our group. So if you ever want to know anything about Ed and Lorraine, um, message me. I'll give you his information, and he'd be a great one to be on.
All right, sounds good.
Alrighty.
All right, well, thank you for being on.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right,
Have
you
a
have a
great
great rest of your
evening.
night.
Take care.
Yeah, take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.
This has been Nightmare Stories of the Other Side, a production of Nightmare Explorers.